This is CBC Here and Now.
The RNC has made arrests in connection with a pair of home invasions.
2 men are in custody in connection with this week's violent home invasions in St. John's, but police are still searching for another. Good evening and welcome to Here and Now, and that's where we begin tonight. A city on edge is a little calmer following the arrest of 2 fugitives. But police in St. John's continue hunting for a potential third suspect. Terry Roberts has the latest from today's court appearance, which got off to a colorful start.
Jonathan Hurley was not impressed with the attention when he walked into court in St. John's this morning.
Cameras are up. Put that on the news.
The 32-year-old is accused of stabbing a homeowner on Beaumont Street during a home invasion on Monday evening. Hurley and this man, 31-year-old Justin Haynes, are now in jail, accused of forcing their way into the Beaumont Street home, assaulting the homeowners, and stealing their car. It's alleged they were then joined by a third suspect and targeted a home on Maunders Lane about 25 minutes later, where they assaulted the elderly couple inside and stole cash and jewelry. The stolen car was found early Tuesday morning in a parking lot off Torbay Road. The home invasions shocked the city. Police warned people to lock their doors and be wary of knocks from strangers. A manhunt caught Hurley and Haynes overnight. They were captured separately without incident. This morning in court, before Judge Lois Gaines, Haynes, quiet, subdued. Hurley, not so much. Both face a long list of charges. Haynes for break and enters. Hurley the same, but also for the stabbing. They were both remanded into custody and will be back in court later this month. RNC officer James Cadigan praised the public for helping out.
Sincerely, thank you for sending a strong message that this activity has no place in our communities.
The invasions were random and unprovoked, Cadigan says. There's no update on the health of the Beaumont Street stabbing victim, whose injuries were initially described as serious. The search for a possible third suspect, meanwhile, continues at this hour, and some areas of the city are being searched for evidence, with officers and ground search specialists seen here in the Ricketts Road area this afternoon. Even with these arrests, there are still questions. Did a third person participate in the home invasion here on Maunders Lane? If so, where is that suspect? Police say they're trying desperately to get answers to those questions. Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, more people are now eligible for the COVID vaccine. Today, Dr. Janice Fitzgerald announced a shift in strategy when it comes to getting boosted and announced a new version of the vaccine will roll out next week. Here Now's Peter Cowan is on this tonight. So Peter, break it down. Who's able to get a vaccine?
Yeah, the province is shifting the approach. Rather than focusing on a specific number of doses, the new message is if it's been more than 6 months since you've had a booster shot, it's time to get one. Now, that's a big change from the current criteria, which meant that only people over the age of 50 were able to get a 4th dose of COVID vaccine. So let's take a look at the new criteria. Now, anyone over the age of 5 can get a booster shot. You do have to be 20 weeks after your last shot, so that's about 5 months. And you can book online through the health authorities. They've got clinics, but you can also get your shot through pharmacies or your doctor's office. Now, there's also a new vaccine that's going to be available starting next week. It's called a bivalent vaccine. It's better tuned to the Omicron variant of COVID that's currently circulating. The province is expecting to get about 63,000 doses this month, so for now it's going to be limited. To get this new shot, you're going to need to be either over the age of 65, live in a long-term or personal care home, or if you're over the age of 12 but you have an underlying medical condition that puts you at higher risk. Also, Indigenous people are going to qualify as well. They've added racialized or marginalized communities that have disproportionately been affected by COVID, as well as congregate living situations, so people in group homes, shelters, or if you're in prison. How long will it take for the general public to be able to get access to this new vaccine? The province doesn't know quite yet.
It's a little bit difficult right now to gauge what the uptake will be, so we want to see that initial uptake and see what will come from that, and hopefully over the next couple of weeks we'll be able to put more information out there about expanded eligibility.
So if you're under the age of 65 and you can't get the bivalent vaccine, should you wait to get boosted? Well, the short answer from Dr. Fitzgerald today was no. She said COVID levels are fairly low right now, but with more people moving inside, kids back at school, she doesn't expect it to stay that way.
We're encouraging people to get a booster, whichever booster you're eligible for at this point, because we know that even a booster with that ancestral strain, it still gives you really, really good protection against severe disease. So important, I think, regardless of what booster you can get at this point, it is important to get boosted.
Now we're talking a lot about fourth doses, but looking at the statistics, interestingly, more than 40% of the population still hasn't had a third dose of the vaccine, which people have been eligible for a while. Dr. Fitzgerald says the good news is that number is a lot higher in the older age groups who are more likely to get seriously sick and therefore benefit the most from getting boosted. But there is a campaign coming out next week to encourage everyone who hasn't been vaccinated in the last 6 months to get another shot. Reporting live from the newsroom, I'm Peter Cowan for Here and Now.
A warning for drivers between Wabush and Labrador City today. Rain caused an unusual buildup of water, especially on the road beneath the overpass in the Wabush-bound lane. Police were warning drivers to take it slow to avoid hydroplaning.
Time for a check of your weather forecast. Ryan Snodden in for Ashley again tonight and picking things up in western Labrador. Yeah, you can see the rainfall warnings continue for Labrador City, Wabush, and a special weather statement now extended to Churchill Falls and the Churchill Valley. But this is where the bullseye for rainfall will be. Upwards of 130 millimeters possible by the time we are said and done on Friday. Yeah, the rain has already started, but the heaviest amounts have been falling southwest of Labrador City, but that will change tonight with 40 to 50, even 60 millimeters of rain. And then again, that much for tomorrow, as this is going to be a slow-moving system that is really going to continue to bring the heavy rainfall in there. We've got some rain that is already starting to track into southwestern parts of the island. That will spread up across the island as we work our way through tonight and in through tomorrow. It's a pretty quick band of rain that will actually move its way out into the northeast and clear as we work our way through tomorrow afternoon. We'll see some sunshine breaking through for the Avalon, St. John's, up the northeast coast into central. But with this onshore breezy southwest flow, it's going to remain pretty cloudy and pretty unsettled for the south and west coast tomorrow. And yeah, pretty unsettled for Labrador, where by the end of tomorrow into tomorrow night, we're talking about some wet flurries mixing in. We'll break it all down with your full forecast coming up in just a few minutes. Carolyn?
All right, thanks so much, Ryan. Well, now to news from the courts. Convicted sex offender Stephen Hopkins was back in court this morning, this time with a lawyer by his side. The St. John's man was found guilty of sexual assault and forcible confinement in June. His 6-week trial was marked by delays as Hopkins continually refused help from legal aid. Now, lawyer Jason Edwards is representing him and will defend Hopkins during his sentencing hearings. Hopkins was ordered to undergo a psychiatric evaluation to determine whether the Crown would pursue dangerous offender status. If the Crown succeeds, Hopkins would remain behind bars indefinitely. He returns to court early next month. Well, this week, Canada Post increased commercial rates for packages. With that increase, there's a chance it could be passed on to consumers. Here Now's Daryl Din brings us that story.
If you're an online shopper, you know all about shipping. Sometimes it's free, sometimes it's not. For the not part, it might be getting a little more expensive for some companies and their products. Inuki Glass Art and Engraving has local customers in Labrador City, but shop owner Rayanne Brown also has digital customers.
We don't have this bulk free shipping like Amazon or other places that you might shop online. We're a small business, so when it comes to our shipping, we use Canada Post.
Canada Post just jacked up commercial postal rates by 4%. For small business owners like Brown with faraway customers, the increase just adds to an already expensive bill.
So last year we shipped an estimated about $15,000 in parcels Canada-wide and to the U.S. Now that does not include our envelope mail, so that number is probably a bit higher, but as a small business, we try to be competitive with our shipping rates, and sometimes we find ourselves absorbing those costs. So
What does a 4% increase look like in dollar and cents? Take this book, for example. Shipping it from Labrador City to St. John's. Before the increase, the cost of a regular parcel post was $18.77. Now it's $19.53. The base price, the fuel surcharge, and HST all went up. Shipping the same book to Vancouver, now $24.54. Again, base price, fuel charge, and taxes inched up by increasing the total cost.
As a small business owner, I think that just limits us to having no choice but to use that service. For us, we can't take, say, UPS or something like that to ship to remote areas that we ship to in Canada, including Labrador, but further across the country as well. So when it comes to options of shipping, someone might say, well, this is a cheaper way to ship, but here as a small business and the places that we ship to, we just don't have that option. So we really don't have a choice but to just take that, I guess, increase and try to work it into our price.
Canada Post says it's simply keeping up with its own cost of doing business. It says retailers and their customers want more convenience. That means more demand at a time when costs of delivery are increasing. In a statement, Canada Post said, given our dual mandates to remain financially self-sustaining and to provide affordable postal service for Canadians, we work hard to maintain reasonable competitive prices and to provide options to meet a range of needs. At Anuki Glass Art and Engraving, there are plenty of options on the shelves. But for Rayanne Brown, her options are limited for shipping, and now more expensive. For CBC News, I'm Daryl Din in Labrador City.
Well, Monday's day of mourning for the late Queen Elizabeth will see all federal government offices shut down on September 19th. Now, it's up to this province to decide what to do on Monday, and the Liberals are following Ottawa's lead. Here and Now's Jeremy Eaton explains.
So the federal government wants to take a day to mourn the late Queen. That means its offices will shut down and its workers, well, they're going to get a day off.
We have also chosen to move forward with a federal holiday on Monday.
But Prime Minister Trudeau says it's up to the provinces on what they want to do. Ontario, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Quebec have all said no. British Columbia, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and Prince Edward Island will close doors to provincial buildings for the day. In Newfoundland and Labrador, Premier Furey is following in the federal footsteps, a one-off provincial holiday in honor of QE2. Provincial government offices will close and employees will get the day off. Schools will shut down. That means some parents are scrambling to find last-minute childcare. Memorial University will close its doors as well, but in a statement to staff, MUN nods to the tangle of views of the monarchy across campus. Memorial acknowledges with respect that history and lived experiences mean this time for reflection may be difficult for some individuals in our community. The Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses have asked provinces to reject this idea, citing the short notice and the fact it's going to cost the economy billions of dollars. But some provinces are prepared to eat that cost. And speaking of eating, it won't be hard to find a bite to eat or something to drink because restaurants, shops, and many offices will all be opened on the day that the Queen is laid to rest. Leaving some on social media scratching their heads wondering why the government gave themselves a holiday, while others say students should get taught about the true history of the British Empire, and others are calling the decision short-sighted. For some, Monday will be a day of reflection. For others, it's going to be a holiday. But for many, the Queen's funeral will just be another day at work. Jeremy Eaton, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, the Queen is now lying in state at Westminster Hall in London. Mourners will be able to view her coffin and pay respects until her state funeral on Monday. The Queen made her final departure from Buckingham Palace in a highly choreographed 38-minute procession. A horse-drawn gun carriage carried her coffin. It was followed by her son, King Charles, and other members of the royal family. Thousands of people lined the route. On arrival at Westminster Hall, the Archbishop of Canterbury led a welcome service. As many as 400,000 people are expected to file past the Queen's coffin. Well, ferry crossings between Newfoundland and Nova Scotia are temporarily stalled due to a mechanical issue with the MV Highlanders. Marine Atlantic says supply delays mean there will be disruptions into next week. Matthew Moore has this report from North Sydney.
As a result of the MV Highlanders having mechanical issues, the Argentia ferry run between Newfoundland and Nova Scotia is cancelled. Instead, the ferry normally servicing that route is now traveling exclusively from North Sydney to Port aux Basques. The company hopes adding a third boat to the shorter route will relieve any backlogs between the two provinces. Part of the issue in getting the Highlanders operating again is difficulties in finding supplies.
So it's a generator issue on the MV Highlanders. We've identified the problem and we're trying to source the parts. The challenge that we have right now is the supply chain is a little slower than what it normally is. So we expect that we're going to have the necessary parts in place by the weekend to enact repairs, and our hope is to have the Highlanders back in service by early next week.
A month ago, another issue on the Highlanders canceled some crossings during the peak of tourism season. Mercer says they're still seeing high commercial and domestic traffic on all ferries. People who were impacted by the loss of the Argentia route have been offered compensation. Mercer says any decision regarding crossings next week will be made in the coming days. Matthew Moore, CBC News, North Sydney.
Well, Marine Atlantic is adding a third boat, the Leif Erikson, on the shorter North Sydney to Port aux Basques run. So anyone booked to cross on the Argentia run this week has been rebooked for the next available crossing. Travelers looking to adjust their travel plans should contact the reservations department.
We kind of modernized it and really kind of built the building over the last years to kind of really respond to the needs that we got in the community.
Well, after the break, CBC Crosstalk host Adam Walsh takes us to the McMorran Community Center in St. John's to meet some of its workers, volunteers, and former program participants. Well, time for a look at the weather forecast, and our friend Ryan Snodden is joining us again tonight. Ryan, thank you so much for doing this. We all know how busy you are with your other forecasting duties in Halifax, so it's really nice to see you, and really nice to see the sunshine as well in St. John's this afternoon after all of this rain that we've been having.
Some well-deserved sunshine in St. John's and across the Avalon, and great to see you as well, Stokesy, and always great to be here on the show. Happy to help, and yeah, let's get right to it, because there's a lot to talk about here with our weather system, which has been, yes, brewing for the last couple of days, and this is the time of year when you look at these temperature contrasts. So you can see Moosonee is just at 11 degrees, 27 in Boston. Where we get these temperature contrasts this time of year, that's where we get things really brewing in terms of a storm system. 26 in Corner Brook, 15 in Labrador City, and that is really where this storm is starting to wind itself up, is across Newfoundland and Labrador, hence the rainfall warnings that are in effect for Labrador City. That is where the bullseye will be with this system, and you can see some rain tracking its way in through southwestern parts of Newfoundland as we speak. Now, this low is going to be slow moving, much like Earl was, which, by the way, the remnants of Earl still spinning out there. It's thanks to this blocking high setup across the North Atlantic. That is still kind of in place, and as a result, that high holding strong. The remnants of Earl continue to swirl, and yes, this low is basically going to go from the Gulf to just northeast of Newfoundland and Labrador by the time we get to Sunday. So it's a slow-moving system, and that rainfall warning, as we mentioned earlier, but in case you missed it, upwards of 130 millimeters possible for Labrador City Wabash as we work our way through tonight, tomorrow, and by the time we get to Friday. Special weather statements have now extended across into the Churchill Valley. Rainfall outlook, this is from the Canadian regional model, but pretty good agreement here with that widespread, looks like 50 to 75 millimeters across western parts of Labrador, but these pink areas, including Labrador City Wabash, this is why we're looking at 75 to 100 plus, and as we said, possibly upwards of 130 millimeters by the time we are said and done. There, again, are those heavier periods of rain that will continue to track through tonight. Across the island, it's this band of rain that tracks from southwest to northeast and keeping things quite unsettled across the island. By the time we get to tomorrow morning, we got some wet snow mixing in. Schefferville, actually, along the Labrador-Quebec border, may actually see some accumulation. It looks like that won't quite line up for Labrador City, but some flakes mixing in by the time we get to tomorrow morning as temperatures drop to near 5. Northerly winds gusting to 70 or 80 kilometers per hour tonight. It's a breezy southerly wind across Newfoundland, and as we work our way through tomorrow, the winds will actually increase in strength. Note the clearing from St. John's into the central. Those onshore winds keeping things quite unsettled for the west and southwest coast. Labrador really unsettled throughout the day tomorrow. Temperatures dropping to 3 in Lab City with winds northerly gusting 70 to 80 kilometers per hour. A real dirty day there. High single, low double digits across the rest of Labrador. And again, we'll see some sunshine breaking through with temperatures into the 20s from St. John's to Grand Falls, Windsor. A pretty pleasant Thursday afternoon, though a little bit breezy, especially along the west coast where those winds will pick up, gusting 50 to 60 kilometers per hour. Now that low, as we said, is a slow moving one. Note, even by Friday, it's basically moved off to the north and east, but it's going to basically stall there after it does make its way to the northeast of the province. So for Friday, northerly winds and a little more westerly across Newfoundland, where we're going to be seeing temperatures ranging from 15 to 17 degrees. Some sunny breaks possible for eastern areas, as you can see, especially into the afternoon, but a pretty unsettled day for the west coast. Saturday, again, that low is still swirling to the northeast of the province, and we're just going to be seeing these bands of moisture tracking their way in from Labrador and then across the island with shower chances. So it's not going to be a complete washout this weekend, but that low does look set to linger even into Sunday, and so keep the umbrella handy or the rain jacket handy for the next few days, no question about it. So we do clear. Thursday afternoon looks good. Scattered shower chances Friday, and then that cooler air, as that low kind of swirling around to the north and east of the province, is going to be keeping us quite cool as well. Low double digits near 12 or 13 degrees for both Saturday and Sunday, but we should be able to get outside between those bands of showers that'll be tracking through. Central parts of the island, a similar story. We'll see the wettest day looking set to be for Friday. The gloomiest day as well, with some sunny breaks for both Saturday and Sunday. Temperatures starting to round up across the island as we work our way into early next week. The west coast pretty unsettled tomorrow and again on Friday, with those onshore showers continuing, and then a bit of a break at times throughout the weekend, but temperatures staying cool and the shower chances lingering. For Happy Valley Goose Bay, you folks are really getting into the action tomorrow with those bands of rain, and then that will continue into Friday, things staying unsettled with periods of rain, and then tapering back to some scattered showers for both Saturday and Sunday. Can't rule out a sunny break, but it looks pretty unsettled there throughout the weekend. And yes, Western Labrador with that rainfall warning in effect and those strong winds, mixing flurries, that'll be the case for Thursday and into Friday. Temperatures will get up to around 6 degrees, back into the double digits, but a pretty unsettled weekend overall. Hopefully back into some sunshine by the time we get to Monday. That is your forecast to now. We'll talk to you soon.
Hi, I'm Adam Walsh, host and producer of CBC Crosstalk. Today we did the show live on location at the McMorran Community Center in St. John's. There's a lot that goes on in this place. I was surprised. I think a lot of you will be too. So come on inside. Let's have a chat with a few folks.
We've been up here with an established center for the last going on now 40 years, coming up as the almost 40 years, yeah, 1974 we were established, and grown a bit over that time from a smaller facility into the larger facility that we have now. We built this building about 20 years ago, and it's we kind of built it to keep up with the times. And you were able to put a nice gym facility into it for different kinds of programming that we do all throughout the spectrum. And you know, we accommodated that then with the development of increased programs and putting public health spaces in here for nurses and that sort of stuff in here, a library for children, computer labs in here, and all that kind of stuff, and a food bank. So yeah, we kind of modernized it and really kind of built the building over the last years to kind of really respond to the needs that we got in the community. In the last 10 years, and I think all staff can speak to this, has been the incredible amount of new Canadian families and newcomer families. It has been incredible in the neighborhood, and I'd say some of our programs now, actually many of them, we probably see an increase of probably 70% of new Canadian newcomer families up in this particular area.
Well, we're here trying to offer programs to the kids who are speaking completely different languages than us. So like, as you said, there is a language difference there. If you notice around our building, a lot of our signage around the building is in Arabic. Is a lot of it, I don't know if you noticed that. So we had to make a lot of modifications over the years, like in the way of that.
Well, I moved here like about 7 years ago, so I didn't always live here. I moved from Lebanon, and I came here as a refugee. And then I moved, I didn't live in the housing, but I lived down the road. So in grade 6, I actually started coming to the summer camp here. And I seen how everybody was it was so different to me because I wasn't always used to people being so nice. Yeah. Coming from a totally different place where people didn't accept everybody, especially in Lebanon, I didn't have the best experiences. So coming here with all the camp counselors, they were all so nice, and they made every single person feel special, which helped me a lot, gain confidence, and I loved to hear everyone was so caring and nice. So I loved to hear it felt like home.
What was it like when you first came here for that after-school program?
I was really young, so it was really fun though. Yeah, the distant memories. It was really fun though because being it was just kind of my mom, and she couldn't always bring us out everywhere because she was working and stuff like that. So being able to come here, and then sometimes the center would bring us skating and they'd bring us swimming, and they would have different people come here doing different crafts. It was a really nice experience to have when you couldn't financially do it elsewhere, sorry.
Yeah.
Food bank is very, very busy, very busy. When I first started volunteering at the food bank, we were averaging about 30 people a month, and now we're up to 90 a month. So it's big, yeah, it's tripled. The cost of everything, and people are struggling, and of course then we had COVID, and everybody was shut in, and we were crazy down here giving out hampers, and yeah, it's just been crazy, and the cost of living has gone to the roof, and people are just having a hard time, so there's more people obviously using the food banks. Yeah. I love the community, I love the people here, the center is fantastic. The staff, you can't ask for any better. Like, whatever you need, they're here for it. If they don't, they'll direct you to someone that can do it for you. The people, the socialization, I just love it all. The kids, everything.
Black leggings are a staple of women's workout wear, but if you've ever had a baby, you may want to learn more about these particular leggings. They were designed by a St. John's physiotherapist. She'll tell us why they're so special coming up. Well, these may look like regular leggings, but they have a secret. Joining me now is the St. John's physiotherapist who designed them, Carolyn Pridham. So Carolyn, can you tell us about these leggings? What makes them so special?
Absolutely. We designed these leggings 2 years ago with the thought of the female body in mind. So the probably more discreet look in the leggings is our gusset. It's a 4-layer gusset with multiple layers to help with hiding any wetness from discharge, urine, menstrual fluid, that sort of thing. So we have the first layer, which is a hypoallergenic cotton, so helps with any irritation. We have another layer that's antimicrobial with silver fibers to help with bacteria formation. We also have a PUL cotton, which is that waterproof laminated finish, and then the last layer that just blends seamlessly into the leggings. So nobody really knows that you have that added protection.
So you're a physiotherapist. How did you get the inspiration for designing something for postpartum women?
Right, so, and it's for any woman really. I've been working in pelvic health myself for 6 years, and that's what our clinic exclusively does. We have massage therapists, counselors, physiotherapists that all deal in this realm, and we really saw the need for that. We wanted to get women back active after babies or even into menopausal age range, and a lot of women find that as a barrier that they have leakage or like I said, discharge menstrual fluid. So it just gives that added little bit of protection so that they can feel comfortable.
And what about the waistband? There's something special about that design as well.
That's right. So again, we were just thinking about that postpartum body in mind. Our waistband is a little bit higher and has a bit of additional compression in the waistband, so it just gives a little bit of more core support. Not too tight, but just that little bit of a gentle hug. And the waistband also is a little bit higher than your traditional C-section scar. So it's not going to irritate over that area that can be very sensitive on women. And no front seam as well, because that can often irritate that area too. So minimal seaming, high waistband, just to give a little bit more compression.
As a physiotherapist, did you ever think that you would be designing clothing?
I didn't think I would be in pelvic health, so I think it's been a natural progression into things. I love working out myself. Me and my partner are very active. So yeah, it was just kind of one of these things that we thought over COVID, wow, this would be a great idea, and we started working.
And what drew you to pelvic health?
The need in our province. There was very few of us doing pelvic health at the time. There's more and more now, which is fantastic to see. Like I said, our physiotherapists here do exclusively pelvic health, and we're really busy. So it just goes to show that there is really the need for it in our province.
And what has the demand been like? What have you been hearing from women, from your customers?
We've gotten great feedback so far. The biggest thing being that, or the concern, I guess, for some people was that the gusset was going to be really noticeable when you'd wear it. But we found with feedback from everybody that people don't even notice it, and it's nice to wear something that's built in versus having like a really bulky pad in the way. So yeah, the feedback's been really, really great so far. The actual material itself is one of my favorite materials. It's compressive, but it also is super, super soft. So even just as a legging, as a female, I don't have any children, but I wear them all the time.
So you say that you're hoping to get like some breastfeeding sports bras in place. Any other plans for the future?
Yeah, we're hoping to expand, doing some shorts for, you always have to plan, which we've learned, fashion ahead of time, obviously. So we're hoping to add a couple of more items into our repertoire, but yes, a breastfeeding tank top, something again that's going to be comfortable, supportive, and give a little bit more protection, if there's any lactation or anything like that during exercise.
And I don't know if we mentioned this off the top or not, but these are called the Resilient leggings. Why did you choose that name?
I think it speaks for itself. It's, it's resilient. Women are resilient. They're powerful. Our slogan there is the power to endure. And, the women's body has to go through so much through their lifetime, typically, even if somebody doesn't have children. So it is something that we felt encompassed the female body really well.
And if there's a woman out there who thinks, oh, these would be great for me, how would they get them?
Yep, so they can go to our website. It's www.via-shop.com. So VIAA-shop.com.
Okay, well, Carolyn Pridham, thank you so much for telling us about them.
Thank you.
Strawberry Hill Inn and Chalet holds a special history with the late Queen Elizabeth. It's where she and her entourage stayed on 2 visits to the island's west coast in 1959 and 1978. Here now's Troy Turner visited the Corner Brook property to learn more about its connection to the late Queen.
It's tucked away on a hill overlooking the lower Humber River. Strawberry Hill Inn and Chalets. It's quiet, it's majestic, a place fit for a queen. And this is it, the room where Queen Elizabeth II stayed during 2 royal tours, one in 1959, the other in 1978. It's like a royal time capsule.
The furniture is original, the shears are original, bedding we had to change, bottom part of the curtains is original, the tops aren't. I gotta look around myself. The lamps aren't. Her chair that she sat into was there, and the original bathroom outfit. which is light rose.
Viola Oak is a manager at Strawberry Hill. She's also an avid royal fan, so working here is special.
I've been a collector for anything to do with the royals for years. Cups, saucers, books, magazines, whatever is out there that I can collect, I surely will collect, and still at it. So working here is quite the pleasure. Just come into a room where she stayed, full of dignity. And anybody that comes in that door, I respect them as a king or queen.
Oak was saddened by news of the Queen's death last week, but is proud of her employer's place in history of the royal family.
It's sad that she have passed. I guess we all knew it was coming. But it's nice for the public to know her 2 visits that made it to Corner Brook here. This is where she stayed.
The legacy of Queen Elizabeth II will continue on here at Strawberry Hill. Oak says just as room number 3 will always be named after the chalet's founder, Sir Eric Bowater, room number 6 will continue and always be the Queen's room. Troy Turner, CBC News, Strawberry Hill.
Well, here's another piece of royal history related to this province. Our CBC cameras were there 25 years ago when Queen Elizabeth sent her very first email. Now, it's hard to believe, and even more remarkable, a man from Labrador City was the one who showed her just what to do. Sean Spurvey was living and working in the UK at the time. We dipped into the Here and Now archives to bring you this story from the CBC's Anne McMillan.
Afternoon, Your Majesty. Sean Spurvey from Labrador City, Newfoundland, surfed the net with the Queen today. He teaches computer science at the British High School, chosen to launch the royal website.
I think this is pretty well the biggest day of my life.
In the spirit of Commonwealth cooperation, the Queen sent her first email to children at Akina School in Northern Ontario. It contained warm greetings and her new website address.
The Queen has a royal website up now. President Clinton has had one for a while. Does Jean Chrétien have one, I wonder? Will he be putting one up?
At the push of a button, the Queen took her first steps on the information highway.
The royal website will, I hope, be an interesting and helpful source of information. I also hope that it will encourage you and others to make full use of the World Wide Web, so that we are all able to learn more about each other and communicate more easily with each other.
The site contains 150 pages of royal history, information about palaces, and family facts. The Queen has her own page, so does Princess Diana, but there's no mention of Fergie, the divorced Duchess of York.
So you want to know how to get into the royal website? Watch this space.
The address on the World Wide Web is royal.gov.uk. Anne McMillan, CBC News, London.
Wow, that's a flashback. Well, as we told you earlier in the show, the Queen is now lying in state at Westminster Hall in London. The CBC's Margaret Evans has more on today's ceremonies from London.
The great bones of Buckingham Palace framed the procession carrying Queen Elizabeth from her London home for the last time. Her coffin borne by horse-drawn gun carriage, followed by her children and grandchildren. The march of history down the Mall, slow but relentless, the drumbeat of the funeral march keeping time as guns sounded and bells tolled. Many of those watching say they weren't prepared for the emotions that came with it.
I'm a bit choked up. I can't really speak at the minute. I'm so sorry.
I didn't think it really hit me until I saw her crown on top of the coffin.
Yeah.
I was a bit like, whoa,
Yeah,
that's
that
incredible. Such a tiny coffin and then seeing that crown.
These women all met for the first time this morning. In the hours waiting for the procession to begin, friendships were formed.
People have been waiting here for hours and hours. In recent days, we've witnessed incredible scenes in Scotland as people there bid a fond and dignified farewell to the Queen. Now it repeats here.
There was gentle applause as the gun carriage passed along the route towards Westminster, for the Queen, but for the family following too. William and Harry, who walked behind their mother, Princess Diana's coffin 25 years ago, and their father, Charles, now bearing the sometimes lonely mantle of monarch.
I'm glad that they got that little opportunity yesterday, that window of being alone at Buckingham Palace. But yeah, they have to, it's a very public event, isn't it? And I feel as though Prince Charles still hasn't been given the opportunity to mourn yet.
This phase of official mourning marks the start of the public's chance here in London to pay their respects to the Queen in person. The procession making its way to the Palace of Westminster, where she will lie in state for 4 days. Long lines began forming well before the procession left Buckingham Palace in the afternoon. The doors to Westminster Hall will remain open 24 hours a day. Margaret Evans, CBC News, London.
president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, has paid a surprise visit to a newly recaptured town in the northeastern part of the country. It's seen as a significant defeat for Moscow, and Zelensky pledged to take back all Russian-held territory.
So we'll come because it's our land and it's our people. That's why we'll come.
There was a flag raising, and the president praised the troops who retook the town. It sits on an important highway in the region near Kharkiv and was a major transportation hub for Russian forces. Zelensky says Ukrainian forces have now liberated 8,000 square kilometers of the country. One of the biggest car shows on the continent is back. The North American International Auto Show in Detroit is running again after being parked because of the pandemic. And this year, it's all about an auto industry that's changing gears.
I'm pleased to announce we're approving funding for the first 35 states, including Michigan, to build their own electric charging infrastructure throughout their state.
Now, that announcement by U.S. President Joe Biden highlights the new direction being taken by the industry. Biden says it's the first stage of a $7.5 billion program that will see 500,000 charging stations built across the United States. Governments around the world have set deadlines for a total shift to zero-emission vehicles. In Canada, it's 2035. A Canadian auto startup is thinking small but has big plans. Upcycle Green Technology takes gas-powered compact cars and converts them into electric pickup trucks. It's targeting the fleet market right now and already has some orders it hopes to fill next year. The CBC's Nancy Russell has that story.
This is one of two prototypes of the new electric pickup truck. It started as an older model Toyota Corolla, the passenger seats replaced with a truck bed, the engine removed, replaced by electric batteries. These prototypes have been 2 years in the making, progress slowed by the pandemic and challenges in sourcing key supplies such as these electric batteries.
It's amazing because this phase is so important for our business, and now we are ready for the next step.
They are still tweaking the design. The vehicles will sell for $35,000 with a range of 150 kilometers, and there will also be a more expensive version that can travel farther. Upcycle is targeting companies with fleets of vehicles who can use a smaller pickup for short trips as an alternative to larger pickup trucks.
We have a lot of these small pickup trucks in Brazil. It's very common for us. But here in Canada, in North America in general, it's hard to find one. So we think there's a good niche of market for this kind of vehicle.
The company has received support from the federal and provincial governments and from UPEI's School of Sustainable Design Engineering. Students help with research on the vehicles, and 2 recent graduates now work here.
This means a lot to me because, we're taking cars that otherwise may go to a scrapyard and giving them brand new life. We're thinking it's going to almost double the lifespan of these cars.
The company says it hopes to create 12 jobs when the assembly line is up and running next year and have already sold more than 20 electric vehicles of the 100 they will produce in 2023.
We have a small island and a small car company, so I think it's pretty nice.
If all goes well, Antonini says they hope to ramp up annual production from 100 to 200 vehicles in the next couple of years. Nancy Russell, CBC News, Stratford.
Coming up on the St. John's Morning Show, the Marine Atlantic delays we told you about earlier are making some people pretty frustrated. You'll hear from a self-professed grumpy traveler who's been trying to catch a ferry ride home to Newfoundland. That's tomorrow. An avid gardener in Winnipeg is doing more than showing off her stunning blooms to passers-by. People are being encouraged to stop and smell the flowers and also take a bouquet home. As the CBC's Emily Brass reports, it's all for a good cause.
I think this one will be nice.
Erica Newman loves opening up her garden to her neighbors.
They're surprised at first. And then I say, you want a flower? And sure. And I said, choose one. And it just brings me joy.
Now she's putting her flowers to another use, raising money for Manitoba Harvest.
This is a nice one here.
She's trying to get the whole neighborhood involved, even asking for some of their blooms.
I don't even know her name. I knocked on the door. I said, you have beautiful flowers. I'm not sure if I will have enough. I have lots, but she said, cut anything. It's going for a good cause.
This is the second flower sale this season. Newman's family raised $300 last week for the food bank, selling bouquets to people walking by.
For Manitoba Harvest, whoever can go buy milk for their kids in school or a backpack or whatever. But now you got a flower because you helped me early in spring too.
She's only lived in Wolseley a year now, but nearly everyone seems to know her.
Erica is the best neighbor. She's going to bring everybody together here. She's great. And she gardens all the time, and she gets anyone's help that walks by, and we're all happy to provide it.
Digging a hole to put one of her plants in, or moving one of her plants to another place. So it always takes more than a minute or two. It takes maybe about 15-20 minutes when you walk by her house.
If I run out of vases, we'll use jars.
Neighbors also pitched in by donating vases and rainwater for her flowers. Newman says she learned the power of giving from her mother and wants to pass that on to the next generation.
The neighbors came, sat on the stairs, and it connects them, you know.
A connection she hopes continues to blossom. Emily Brass, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Oh, beautiful flowers. Well, Paris's famed Eiffel Tower will go dark an hour earlier than usual as part of a plan to save energy this winter. Temperatures are also being lowered in municipal pools, and heating in public buildings will be delayed and reduced. It's all part of a bid to cut costs with energy prices in Europe soaring. The tower, which has 20,000 light bulbs, will shut them off before midnight instead of 1 a.m., but the mayor of Paris says it's still the city of lights, even if they go off a little bit earlier. Well, that wraps up this Wednesday edition of Here and Now. Thank you so much for spending part of your evening with us. Hope you can join us again tomorrow night. Good night.